Good morning, all. We're on the brink. We're in the mouth of Christmas. Isn't that what they say, Pat? In the mouth of
Yes,
Christmas.
or
And
on
it
the
is a
cusp.
wondrous time. Hey, I think I hear sleigh bells. Do you hear
Sleigh
sleigh
bells.
bells, Pat?
Yes, yeah. Well,
Are you listening?
you might hear sleigh bells when you hear. What I'm hearing is the wind howling outside my window. I don't know
Has
about
that
you.
not died down yet, Pat?
No, no, Jesus, not at all, Jude. By the way, Jude, let's get this clear. This is North Donegal.
Hmm.
I keep telling people there's trees outside my house, and they're swaying away in the breeze. And about 5, 10 minutes ago, there's a massive hail shower. So
Aye,
it's not eased up yet.
it'll die down, die down. Okay, let's start off with the Christmas thing. This idea of being home for Christmas, they make a big thing of this, People like the fact that Holyhead had problems and that
Yeah,
the
massive
ferries weren't
problems.
able to come
Yeah.
across. Oh, geez, people are in an awful state. They're not going to be able to get home. Um, have you ever spent a Christmas away from home, Pat?
I spent one, Jude, only one. But by the way, it was by choice, not by no unfortunate or misfortune. But my dear Mrs. Had this dream for about 40 years. We've been married nearly 50 years. And she obviously says one Christmas we're going to spend something sitting in the sun rather than sitting in the dark type thing. So we decided, what was it, about 4 or 5 years ago, we'd go to Spain for Christmas. Now,
Hmm.
Jude, I got to admit, it was lovely. We were not too far from Torrevieja, near no in Alicante, and we went to the beach on Christmas Day. Just decided to go down. There was
Hmm.
four of us, and we went down to the beach, and we sat on the beach. We brought down a bottle of wine and some sandwiches early in the morning. We sat on the sun. By the way, it was beautiful, about 24, 25 degrees. We had a nice time. In fact, we chatted to a whole lot of people that morning, and then we came back up and had our Christmas dinner, and it was a lovely way. Now, Jude, I'm looking out today. It's very dark here. It's grey. The weather, the wind is howling outside. I don't know if you can hear it. Now
Can't
it
hear
is,
you.
I think, starting to ease up. So the choice is people make choices. There's some traditionalists who will never move as much as a yard from their house, and there are other people. Jude, there's a lot of people flying into Ireland, but there's a lot of people flying out of Ireland as well.
Yeah, but you said you just did it once, maybe you
Yeah,
enjoyed it, but you wouldn't. It's not something you'd want to do every year.
not at the minute, no. Though, hey, Jude, when I look out today, I wouldn't mind sitting in the sun somewhere today, to tell you the
Well,
truth.
yeah,
Have you ever done it, by the way?
no, never, never. Well, I mean, I've lived abroad, but I've never been away from home in that sense.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I had a brother in New Zealand, and he used to send letters home talking about how the people would spend Christmas on the beach. Jeez, I
Yeah,
couldn't even envisage that, the notion of a
yeah,
picnic on the beach on Christmas Day. So somehow it didn't fit. And
yeah.
I suppose I'm traditional that I associate, fires. Well, there aren't fires anymore, fireplaces
No,
and gifts and so on. But then I stopped to think about it, Pat. I'll tell you a truth. I don't actually like Christmas Day much. There's the odd
yeah.
moment of excitement when somebody you think someone's giving you a really good present. But other than that, like you tend to be in a room and it tends to be overheated. And if there's a fire, the room gets stuffy. And you tend to drink and eat maybe just that wee bit too much. Uh,
Yeah,
and you go out for a walk to try to get a breath of air, and then you come back in again. And eventually you're saying to yourself, how long will I have to sit here before I go to bed? Because the TV is
yeah,
usually useless over Christmas.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I
Absolutely.
I, I blame your man Dickens. They say that Dickens
Uh,
invented Christmas.
Dickens really. I was watching a program about it the other night, about Dickens, and basically, you're right. He basically invented the modern day Christmas.
All the good cheer.
Do you ever remember? Do you ever remember the Stanley Baxter? He used to be on a Christmas
I
night,
remember him
and
a bit. Yeah.
I loved him on it. The way he played the Scotch guy coming out of the off license was, a crate of whiskey, a crate of vodka, a crate of gin, 10 or 12 cans of beer, and all the rest of it, and a couple of bottles of sherry. And he looks at the guy and he says, "Jesus, if it wasn't for the kids, would you bother?" In other words, he was going to get pissed no matter what was happening. Anyway, no, Christmas, Jude, I think the only thing about, well, not the only thing about Christmas. Christmas is a great time for family. People getting together, and I think it's important. Now, I always feel sorry for people where maybe there's somebody dead or somebody missing,
Yeah, yeah.
or maybe a child abroad who's
Uh,
emigrated. And I always feel for people like that. There's an empty chair, and so
hmm.
on. And it can be a very sad time for some people. But by and large, like, let me get it on the record for myself. I love Christmas. I really genuinely do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me what you like about it particularly, Pat. One
Let's
thing.
go warm. I think we need a break from the world, Jude. And usually at Christmas, we can all sit around having a nice time. And I know, but like
Yeah,
for
why?
instance,
Yeah,
today,
be more precise, Mister Editor McGart. Uh,
uh,
one thing.
yeah, no, right, family. Like
Hmm?
for instance, today, today's not Christmas Day, but this is our sort of family Christmas because we have got kids and they've got kids, and it's just too awkward. But everybody's arriving today. They wouldn't be all arriving at the one time if it wasn't for Christmas. So we're going now. Poor Mrs. going to have half a day cooking and so on. She mightn't like it as much, but I'll have a nice time. Now, I don't think it's after when everybody leaves, we have to start
Yeah,
doing all the dishes and so on.
yeah.
But no, family. If you're looking for a word, I define Christmas. It's a time you get in touch with a lot of people. In fact, we usually end up getting calls from people in Australia and some people just, and it's a nice. I think it's a warm time. And
Mm.
if the one wasn't blowing so much, I'd put on the turf fire. But
Uh,
so
uh, uh.
yeah,
Well, you wonder, is it, the way people have, I suppose, the hymns and so on, or the carols, peace on earth, goodwill to men, and everybody says, John Lennon sings, war is over if you want it, and so
uh,
on.
mm,
Um,
mm.
is that not just bloody hypocrisy? Do people mean that when they say that, everybody should be friends in the world and we shouldn't
Yeah.
have an
Well,
end
do
to
you
war?
remember the famous No Man's Land, the famous
Oh,
1914, 1918 war, where the Germans and there's something about Christmas. And Jude, hey, I'm not religious at all, but that message that Jesus Christ gave out, like if we followed, as human beings followed what Jesus said, the world would be so much a better place. And I'm going to do a discarding note, but if Jesus came back today, a brown-skinned Palestinian type person, they'd probably crucify him again. But the message that Jesus gave out, I think it's a beautiful message. I think it's the best message mankind has ever got.
but I think that well, I don't want to get into that too much, but in fact, I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and I was saying our system teaches us the very reverse, and we follow it fairly assiduously, most of us. I mean, Jesus preached, you look out for others, look out for others,
Yeah,
look out for people in need, help them.
yeah,
That's what you're on earth for. Whereas our system, capitalist system, however liberal it may be, says, look out for yourself. You've got the
yeah,
duty. Look out for yourself, be able to earn, play your part in society, look after your children, look after your family, look after maybe the odd neighbor, but it's you. You're in against them and you're competing for
yeah,
jobs, you're competing for promotion. Look after number one, and you're a fool if you don't. So the
yeah.
two.
Judy, that was one of the things I found out. I know a couple of people who are consider themselves, and they're sprouting out stuff on social media about but at this time of the year, about Christmas and about all the rest of it. And Jude, they they would probably support Israel. They would probably support Donald Trump. And those to me are total. They are not what Israel's doing is not Christianity, as my understanding. Trump stands for everything that I think is inimical to Christianity. He's basically narcissistic, megalomaniac, misogynist, charlatan,
Mhm.
cheat, liar, sexual predator. Good. These are the people who are talking about, all religious. And I'm going, how
Mhm.
do you support, but they're into all this thing about, the old, let's return to old values. If you're returning to old values, where does Trump fit into that?
The
Yeah,
nastier traditional
yeah,
values.
yeah, yeah,
I wonder. I wonder if the idea of Christmas is a good idea at all, because it only encourages most of us hypocrisy. Must be because
yeah.
everybody, including ourselves, we say, "Oh, we'll love each other," and so on, and inevitably people stop loving each other. Or certainly, if you're talking about internationally, might is
Mm,
right. And that's the name of the
mm,
game. You've got an army and you learn use it to kill other people if they try to come into your country. Or you go abroad
mm,
and you murder them in their own country and take it over, like
yeah,
the state
yeah,
of Israel. So
yeah.
is it not a big charade of hypocrisy? And You know,
Well, there is,
it's
but hey,
not
but
good.
Jude, we all, you
Hypocrisy
know,
is not good.
I think Christmas is a break from the darkness of winter, and it's a wee bit of, it's a wee bit of time people get together, and it does try and spread the right message, a wee bit of love and peace. It doesn't always work, but Jesus,
It
Jude, the
doesn't always
alternative is
work. Doesn't
no,
always work. It fucking
no.
never
Hey,
works.
okay, not at all. Jude, just been years of Pax Americana, but but no, Jude.
You're
Hey,
a
hey,
laugh,
let's
Pat.
get it clear. We're living in horrible times now, and this is the worst. Jude, I am 71 years of age, and I this is easily the worst time I think I've ever been alive.
Mm,
When you see what's happening in Gaza, when
mm,
you see how many have died there, when you see what's happening in Ukraine, but much worse, and I mean this, is the hypocrisy that I see around me now. That the, we're watching a genocide and we're being told it's not a genocide. Well, and the moral values that I used to hold dear, the fact that governments at least were accountable and sort of were honest, or at least the Americans are sort of saying what's happening in Israel or Gaza is not genocide, and it's not they're not atrocities. That Israel's defending itself. The UK saying the same. Germany saying the same. The French are saying the same. And we all independent bodies, the International Criminal Court, the
mm, mm.
International Court of Justice, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch. You keep going. Are all saying all independent organizations
Mm,
are
mm,
saying there's a genocide taking place, and yet we're being told no, there isn't.
mm. Well, I think I'd agree with you in part, Pat, because I would say things are pretty crap at the moment. Not at the moment, for several years now. But I think there's a danger in saying it's uniquely nasty or bad because things always were sort of bad. I mean, if you think back to the last 19th, 20th century, early 20th century, the Great War, as they call it, the war to end all
Yeah,
wars, look at the number of people who died in that. By
yeah.
the hundreds of thousands for nothing,
Mm.
for nothing. And then you had the Second World War, and you had the Korean War, and you had the Vietnam War.
Mm.
Every age manages to produce its most ghastly features at some stage. And I just think
But
this
was
idiot.
there was at least the semblance of a morality, like the Second
I
World
don't believe
War.
there was, Pat. I don't
Right,
believe there
hold
was.
on a minute. But right, Hitler goes into Poland. He has gas chambers. He murders 6 million Jews. There seemed to be some sort of moral argument for taking him on, and and he had built up a massive armory, and and he talked about ruling a 1,000 year Reich and all the rest of it. I'm not saying what happened surrounding it, but at least there seemed to be some sort of moral justification.
Mm,
Like
mm.
even the Pope and the rest of it now is getting into bother about saying this word genocide, and
Aye,
there's
aye.
scholars coming on and all this bollocks. Jude, when you deliberately destroy a community, to cut off their water, their food, their medicines, their fuel, their electricity, how the Israelis have systematically targeted water so the people will die from lack of water and malnutrition, and they can't recover even. Jude, there's a girl, I can't remember her first name. She's a Labour MP, Sultana. She says there's 118,000 people dead in Gaza, and dude, we're sitting watching that, and and she's usually pretty accurate. She says
Mhm.
there's at least 118,000 dead.
Yes.
Dude, that to me is genocide, and a Pope has said it, and the Israeli foreign minister has accused the Pope of trivializing the word
Aye,
genocide.
aye, aye,
He's,
aye. I heard that. In fact, the Pope and genocide was the next item I was going to come on to. It's a sort
yeah,
of a narrowing
yeah,
of this thing. How we got from Christmas Day, I was talking about goodwill to men, and the next thing we're back to Gaza. But Pope
yeah.
Francis has said yesterday they did not allow the Patriarch of Jerusalem into Gaza as promised. This yesterday, children were bombed. This is cruelty. This is not war. I want to say it because it touches my heart. And he it should be investigated because it looks very like genocide. Well, I would applaud the Pope, and most people admire Pope Francis. There's no doubt about that.
Mm,
He seemed a very good man. But I'd
mm,
also have to say, why did he wait like the Irish government? Why is he
yeah.
saying we need to look at this and see if it was genocide or not? I mean, there's no question. No question about it. What he's saying now is spot on. It's cruelty, not war, but you should have said it a year ago.
But here's the thing. Oh, look, have you read? I was reading a wee bit there in the Guardian. The academics. There's a guy who is Israeli, and he was getting a top job in one of American universities, real top job. And because he said it's his belief what's happening in Gaza is now genocide, he's been knocked back. He's not getting the job. A lot of people are, dude. One of the old standby positions years ago, was if you were smeared as an anti-Semite,
Hmm.
that was it. In Germany, it's an offence. You can actually get jailed for it. To be accused in Britain, look at Corbyn. In America, Jack Chirac said that he thought at one stage that Israel was the 51st state of America. He says he now believes that America is just simply a vassal of Israel, that the Israelis and the Jewish lobby has such power there that they dictate policy. But Jude, the Pope says there's genocide. ICJ says there's almost well there's a case of genocide. The International Criminal Court, I think, is issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Galant and so on. But we're told no, no. Like, where's the international outrage? Where's the Brits saying we will arrest Netanyahu? Where's the Americans saying, wait, FIFA within about after Russia went into Ukraine, FIFA and UEFA automatically put out Russia. They were out of the Eurovision Song Contest. Russian athletes are not allowed to participate in the Olympics. About 14, 15 months in, there's not a word about Israel.
Yeah, Israel was in the Eurovision Song Contest this
Yeah,
year. Um,
yeah.
it's awful. Let's talk about the guy who's going to go to America. He's going to go to lie abroad for his country.
Yeah,
That is
a
to
good
say,
ambassador.
he's a U.S. ambassador from Britain, Peter Mandelson. What do you think of Peter Mandelson, and will he make a fine British ambassador?
Dude, let me tell you something. I knew Peter Mandelson when he was in his other life. I was a young editor in the Derry Journal, and Peter Mandelson was a producer for the politics show on London Weekend Television. And he came to interview me many years ago. And I can't say I've found him particularly warm or friendly, so let me get that on the record. But remember, he became Secretary of State for what do you call it, for Northern Ireland, and he adopted a totally pro-unionist position. He was, and so on. I never liked him as politics much then. And then, of course, it was Tony Blair, and he was what was he lost his job twice, if I remember. But anyway, bottom line of it all was he was one of the key people in getting who led the purge against Jeremy Corbyn because Corbyn was not sufficiently like Mandelson. Jude is not Labour. He's nowhere near a socialist. He's somewhere to the right of David Cameron and all the
Well,
rest of it.
he's
I think he's just
credited,
a fit.
He's credited with getting Tony Blair into
Yeah,
power three times.
like he was the guy. He was a senior producer on the media. He knew the media game and knew how it worked and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
He and Alistair Campbell were the two main spin doctors and so on. But anyway, I know what I love. Apparently, last night Trump's. I wrote down the guy's name because I would never remember where did I read it. Aye, Trump's campaign coordinator recently, a fellow called Chris Savita, has referred to Mandelson as a moron.
That's a good start.
Apparently, he cleared it with Trump beforehand. Now, the one thing I liked about Mandelson, he said Trump was a danger to the world, and he was a white, little more than a white nationalist. Now, here's the other thing: David Lammy also described Trump as a sort of some sort of moron years ago and protested against his visit. I can't remember the name of the other guy. Some as John Doherty or someone. He was a Doughty. He's the
Yeah.
foreign minister. He campaigned not to have Donald Trump address both houses of parliament when the last time around. Now
Mm-hmm.
these are all the people who are having to deal with Trump. So
Mm-hmm.
Trump apparently, and as well as that, apparently something like 200 Labour people went over to work on the Harris campaign.
Yeah.
So Sir Keir Starmer apparently appointment of Peter Mandelson or Lord Mandelson is now apparently regarded as a toxic move. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm. He's I've never liked him, but I just take a dislike to people irrationally. But I was looking up
Yeah.
some of the detail in his background. Did you know there was a time when Peter Mandelson was part of a group called, you'll never guess, Young Communist League?
You're kidding.
He was a communist short time, but you see, it was for a good cause because it was in order to protest against the war in Vietnam. So,
Yeah.
even the worst of people maybe have something good. There was an
Oh,
opinion
oh,
poll.
aye, but hang on. Paris was once a republic.
Yeah. There was an opinion poll conducted in March 2009 by left, it says center left think tank called Compass. And they found that Peter Mandelson, they were astonished. They found that Peter Mandelson was less disliked by party members than Deputy Leader Harriet Harman. They thought they couldn't believe the results. They said, how is this? Because historically, Mandelson has always been unpopular among Labour members. So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
kind of. I talked to an Irish American guy, O'Dowd, your man O'Dowd,
yeah,
Fergus O'Dowd's brother, the
yeah.
TD, and he was the subject of Mandelson came up, and he was scathing about him. He said, "I see now where he's trying to take credit for having brought about the Good Friday Agreement, and he wasn't a flash, you know." Uh,
No,
I think maybe Trump and Mandelson deserve each other.
yeah, yeah. All right. No, but but Jude, you know the way the Brits harp on all the time about this special relationship. Apparently someone has described the appointment of Mandelson as toxic. So it will be interesting to see now where they go. And Jude, I don't know how they're all going to be dancing like like marionettes to try and keep Trump happy because Lammy, uh, Starmer, Mandelson, and your man, I think Stephen Doughty, I think that's his name. They're the four key boys who will be dealing with the Trump administration. Every one of them has described Trump as a neo-Nazi type.
Mm-hmm. Let's move from Peter Mandelson, who isn't most people would describe as a wonderful example to the world, to a man you mentioned earlier, Jesus Christ. There are those people who talk about Jesus Christ now as having been a Palestinian.
Yeah,
That is, he was, and you can see there's some merit to it. I think it's misleading ultimately, but Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem, I gather, is in the West Bank. The West Bank
yeah,
is Palestine,
yeah,
Palestinian. So you could say, it's like kids that are born to immigrant families. Uh,
yeah,
they can lay claim to being Irish. Yeah, I suppose Jesus, if he wanted to, could have laid claim to be a Palestinian. But I think by and large, people say, well, let's face it, he was a Jew. But,
yeah,
that has caused the Catholic Church a terrible time over the years. When I was a
uh,
kid, we used to pray something. I don't know if you remember it, Pat, but there was a line in the Good Friday Agreement, or no, the Good Friday Agreement, Good Friday itself,
uh,
where there was a line about pray for the conversion of the perfidious Jews. Do you remember that?
yeah. I remember that. Yeah, yeah,
They had to
yeah,
scratch it out because
yeah,
it didn't sound too good. And the time of the Vatican Council too, there was big rows about this because what position were they going to put the Jews in? And traditionally, the church had seen the Jews as being the enemies of Christianity. Um,
yeah.
so they had to learn to, be a bit more human with regard to the Jews. But it's a very interesting notion, isn't it? That Jesus, and of
That,
course, you can see things like modern parallels, uncanny. Like
mm,
whenever Jesus was born, we're told that Joseph had a dream and was told in a dream to go a roundabout way back home because if he
yeah,
didn't, his son would be killed because
yeah,
Herod was busy slaughtering infants. Now,
yeah,
where have we heard that before? Slaughtering
yeah.
of
And
innocents.
no, Jude, know the thing about it. Years ago I was on social media and I got into an argument as I am wont to do with a rabid Zionist, and he basically he said that because it said in the Bible such and such that didn't matter if it was 3,000 years ago. No, and I says, "Are you telling me some guy in the sky, that nobody's ever met, is telling you that you're entitled to this land?" By the way, I was just deliberately being offensive, you know. But anyway, the bottom line, Jude, here. Another point is, I said to him, right, if a German is born in Germany and a French person is born in France and an Irish person is born in Ireland, are you telling me somebody born in Palestine isn't a Palestinian? And he says, no, no, he's a Jew. And I said, no, no, you know, culturally he might be a Jew, but strictly speaking, the Palestinians are quite entitled. They say, no, wait a minute, he was born in Palestine, so he's
That's
a
right.
Palestinian.
But the reason they would take offense to that is that they have such a low opinion of the Palestinians. They think of
Yeah,
the
they're
Palestinians
subhuman.
being a sort of a subspecies,
Yeah,
and therefore to suggest that there was any merit or somebody of worth would be classified as being a Palestinian runs counter to everything they believe. They really have. It must be. I think it must be, Pat, some sort of cultural or generational um, fault line that's running from the 6 million Jews that were killed during the Second World War up to the present. It must be that. That must be what drives them. Maybe it's fear, you see,
yeah.
that look, that happened to us, but Jesus, it's not going to happen to us again. We're never going to be.
No, I know, but another funny thing, my brother-in-law, he had an old Bible. It was published somewhere in New York about 1910 or something,
Mm,
and it's quite clearly says Palestine. And there, I saw a map. It was made somewhere about 1820 or something, and it said Palestine. So when did so Palestine? There's a lot of scientists, Zionists. Jude, if you actually listen to them, they're saying Palestine never existed and so on. There's an actual, this is this Jewish lobby and all that. But here's the thing, Jude. I think a lot of people saying, right, the Holocaust was unique. That meant what happened to the Jews was unique. So therefore, Israel's unique. It's the last part of that thing, Jude, that I have a problem with. You
mm.
know, the Israelis should not get a bye ball for what happened to Jews, and what happened to the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a horrific thing, probably the worst thing in human history. Though there are some people who would argue
Yeah,
what King Leopold did in the Congo in the
yeah,
what the 19th century. Like they said, there was 10 million Congolese disappeared, arms cut off, and things like that. Anyway, but that's a side issue. But hey, Israel should not get a bye ball because what happened during the Second World War.
well, of course not. Of course they shouldn't. I mean, somebody says that people are dining out on their reputation. I was once a great person. I'm a shit now, but I want you to remember I was a great person, so take me out to dinner. It's the same
Yeah,
thing with well, I wouldn't say the Jewish people, the Israelis. They're saying terrible
mm,
things were done to us, and they were done to them. That doesn't give
yeah.
you any right whatsoever to do it to other people. In fact, you'd think you, of all people, would have some empathy for these. Okay. We're running out of time, but let's come to quickly to the 24 hours that your state, your government, not mine, I'm
Mm,
only Northern Irish, as distinct from
mm.
a member of Ireland, a part of Ireland.
I,
Uh,
I am. I should stop you there, by the way, just before you go on, because I know you're going to go. Does that term mean to you Northern Irish?
it means, well, it means that if somebody applied it to me, it would mean that they're saying you're living in Northern Ireland, but they can't say I was born in Northern Ireland because I wasn't.
No, but here's the point, Sid. Northern Irish, is that trying to say you're some sort of hybrid?
No, it's trying to get an identity where there is no identity. Why do you think they keep referring to the six counties as Ulster when it patently
Yeah,
isn't? Well, they carved
yeah.
out Cavan, Monaghan, and Donegal so that the thing would be right, and yet they would call it Ulster. Why? Because that would suggest some legitimacy that would go back. This is Ulster, and Ulster was always different. It's not Ulster.
Yeah.
It's the six counties you've carved out for a sectarian
Mm.
state. So
Yeah.
I've little. I was making a point there, and then you took me away. I was
I
saying
no go no right, no go on
this
back to
poor
about the
woman,
fact that
this 24
that
hours
24 hour go on
was
ahead.
instituted, and there were to be people were to slow down so there's no death. And some unfortunate woman about Limerick or somewhere was standing at a gate, I think, and this car came along, smashed into the gate, wounded the woman to a point where she died, and the car drove off.
Yeah.
So much for slowing down. How would you react to that, Pat? What would you do to the guy who did it, or?
Well, I don't know. By the way, I think it's a silver transit van rather than a car, just to be accurate, because I think
Uh,
that's what I
uh,
heard on the news this
so it
morning.
ought to be
And
different. If
apparently,
a transit van ran into you, it'd be different.
no, no, not that it makes much difference, but just for the sake of
Yeah.
accuracy. But I mean,
Okay.
bottom line of it is, he drove on. However, does God help him, Judah, and God help the woman, because I don't know how you could live with yourself, after not. And the woman was apparently standing, as you said, at a gate. I think it's Abbeyfield or somewhere in County Limerick. And it was National Slow Down Day yesterday. In fact, it went on for 24 hours.
That's right.
I
Seven to
started on
seven.
Friday sometime, and so
Mhm.
on. Dude, I was on my way up to Letterkenny on what day? Friday afternoon, and there was a lot of Gardaí activity, and I presume it was a show of strength. They show that they were out and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
But anyway, Jude, I think it's a good idea. Jude, every day nearly that there's a road traffic accident, so Donegal in particular, but Northern Ireland seems almost much worse than the Republic. Geez,
Mhm.
Jude, the number of road accidents in Northern Ireland is phenomenal.
Well, no matter where they are, anywhere in Ireland, I think it's a tragedy. It really is.
Mm.
We invent cars, and the simple solution, of course, is make cars so they can't go at more than about 50 or 60 miles an hour. Even that's a
Yeah,
problem. But I mean, cars are designed. Most cars are designed to do about at least 100 miles an hour. What's the
absolutely.
point in that? What is the
Yeah,
point? That's
yeah.
just enticing people to think in terms of speed with regard to the car. But back to your point, you said God help the guy who hit the woman as well as God help the
Mm.
poor woman who's died. Why did you
Mm.
say God help the poor guy or words to that effect?
Jude, there's a guy come in the last day. He set fire during a drug thing. He was down about Cork somewhere. And the Gardaí ruled that it was an accident and so on.
Yeah.
10 years later, the guy come up and went to court and says, no, onto the Guardian and said, no, it wasn't. I set the fire. I think the guilt that that person who drove on, knowing that he's killed somebody, if he's anyway half decent at all,
Hmm.
somebody maybe panicked, maybe he was, maybe, and by the way, this is something I know nothing, obviously I can't know because I don't even know the person, but maybe too many, maybe two or three pints that he should have had. Maybe it could have been with another woman and his wife doesn't know. I don't know any of the
Hmm.
circumstances. But see, when you someone like that happens and you drive off, dude, I don't think you can live with yourself
Yeah.
if you've killed somebody.
Well, if I'm very impressed by you, and Pat, because I was thinking the same sort of thing myself. I was thinking, I could see how if a guy hit someone and guessed that they'd
Yeah,
really seriously injured them or maybe killed them, you'd
yeah,
be in such a terror that you'd find yourself driving on before you had time to think. So,
uh,
it would be in a state of fear rather than a state of
uh,
arrogance that this guy would have driven on. At the same time, he's got to take responsibility for what he's done.
absolutely.
I just think this thing of saying, "Oh, a disgusting person, he killed a woman and he drove on," it's people are God help them. They're you put your finger on.
He's not going to want any friends or any, and it's
No,
all the
no,
rest of a
no,
lot of
I
people.
think not.
But
I
having
think,
said that, Jude, I would hate to be him. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Have we time, Pat? You have about 10 seconds to tell me what you would like to give as a gift to anyone. If you had a perfect opportunity to give a gift today, anything, what would you do? One gift, and to
It's
whom?
like, what's the best wine in the world? The one you like. I'd like to give them the present they would like.
Well, if I had my way, um, the gift would be Donald Trump would have to resign, confess that he was a shit and a billionaire, and he has misled people for